Welcome back, guys. This is DDP back for a short Mavs update here. I'm going to call this segment that I try and do at least once a week a Mavs Fastbreak. It's a live stream, but it's not going to be anything crazy long. It's just something to kind of get some update out there, some news and everything. And if you guys like it, maybe I'll pick it up when we get in season to doing a couple a week. But for now, we're just going to roll with this. So I was actually out of town this weekend and just got back. I am admittedly exhausted. I did not get much sleep while I was gone. So let's just kind of give a minute or so for some people to start filing in. And once we're good, then we'll get rolling with it. But in the meantime, let me see here. Yeah, in the meantime. Okay, hey, shout out Cam Hicks. All right, I'll kick off with some questions here. Is Yogi gone? Well, the Mavericks have rescinded the qualifying offer, making him an unrestricted free agent, but I don't think Yogi's gone. It actually sounds like, according to Mike Fisher of 105.3 The Fan, that a new deal with Yogi is quote-unquote on the 1 yard line. Now, to be fair, for something on the 1 yard line, it's been there a while. It's been there about a day and a half now since all that news came down. Shout out Ray Ricks and Glech. So, yeah, I think a new deal, Rangers King, what's up? I think a new deal does get done with Yogi, probably something along the lines of his previous deal. I really like the idea of bringing Yogi back, even though he's an undersized guy and even though we got a bit of a logjam at point guard in particular. But I think that he brings a good presence, a good spark plug energy to the team, and he gives you guys, he gives the team something to kind of help groom some of the other young guys. It's funny because he's only been in the league a couple of years, but he's still, just due to his experience, more of a veteran than them. So we'll see how that goes. So let's talk a little bit of the Summer League news here. The Mavericks, unlike last year when they won the Summer League tournament, I believe, they either won or they were in the finals. I'm pretty sure they won. Like I said, I'm kind of tired here. I'm going on about 2 hours sleep. So last year dominated. Of course, we got a lot more Dennis Smith Jr. last year, and that was also the breakout performance as well for Moxley, and that made a big impact as well. So this year we got a little bit of Dennis Smith, but not a lot. We got no Luka, which is what I had said I expected to happen, rather not having Luka at all, just because his European basketball play wrapped up literally like days before the NBA draft, and they wanted to give him some break. So they had him practice a little bit with the team, but they never ran him out there in those competitive situations. Frankly, with Dennis Smith, I was a little surprised they ran him out there, honestly, just because I kind of worried a little bit about his, you never want to risk a guy's health. And he's such an explosive player and kind of ferocious player in how he attacks the game that I was like, oh, every time he went up for a dunk or a layup in transition, I was like, oh, don't get hurt, don't get hurt. So I think that's something with him, man. That is a concern, not just that he's had the knee injury before, but he does go reckless sometimes to the rim. And so that does raise some concern that maybe he could come down wrong or something, knock on wood. But we'll see on that. So we got a little bit of Dennis Smith. He was aggressive, but his shot selection wasn't the normal from what we saw last year. And some people pointed out, he wasn't all that effective as far as field goal percentage and all that. I think he's actually kind of tinkering with a little bit different shot selection, maybe in anticipation of playing off the ball a little bit more with Luka running things. And, if that's the case, then why not? That's the perfect time to work on that kind of thing. Yeah, shout out to Sugar Daddy in the comments. Yeah, I did chop off all of my luxurious hair. More than anything, growing it out was just kind of laziness. And I'll admit, even though I usually always had short hair like this, I definitely am missing the long hair a little bit since I grew it out for like a year. But anywho, let me take a look at some of the comments here. Yes, as Glech mentions, we did sign Kostas Antetokounmpo. Still trying. We did sign him to a two-way deal, and in the process, we had to release Collinsworth, which I think was a very logical move, even though I do think he could, for someone, be a pretty good role player in the future. But yeah, it made all the sense in the world for him to be the release there. And, you know, that's one of those things where I think getting him on the roster now, at least on a two-way contract and playing him in the D-League, I think that's a good bet, good way to keep developing him. And, hell, a good way to keep that connection if you really think that they're trying to make that connection for Giannis. That's a good starting point for that. So, let's see here. Yes, the big loss in free agency, I felt more than Doug McDermott. Doug McDermott, I looked at and I thought, for that contract, I know how good he was for us last year, but for that contract, I wouldn't have wanted the Mavs to match that offer from Indiana. It was something like 7 for 22, but it was fully guaranteed, or not 7. That'd be a crazy cheap deal. It was something like 3 for 22, $7 million a year, and it was like fully guaranteed or something like that. So for the Mavericks, I would not have wanted them to offer that deal to McDermott. I say that again, pointing out I'm also, being from Oklahoma, I'm also a Thunder fan, although Mavericks are my number one, no doubt. And as a result, I got a good look at Dougie McBuckets there as well. So I feel like he was a good fit for our system. I would have liked to have brought him back, but not for the money that he took with Indiana. The one that hurts, though, to me, and the one that I thought there's no way they miss out on him unless someone throws big money, was Seth Curry. I'm really disappointed to lose Seth. I thought Seth was exactly the kind of player that they needed. And to let him walk, let me see here. Do you guys have like an echo on my voice? I just noticed one of my settings was a little bit wonky here. I've been tweaking the settings in my stream software here and noticed it was pulling audio from two sources. So I might have been a little echoey for a moment, but it should be good now. Letting him go for really not that much money to Portland was a big disappointment. I know he was coming off, missing all of last year with the stress reaction in his knee or leg, whatever, just below the knee. But I still really wanted to bring him back because I felt like that was a really affordable deal that he went for, and I really would have liked to have seen, Seth Curry spotting up for three while Dennis Smith or Luka or whoever could just, oh man, the kickouts and all of that would just be phenomenal to have that kind of really, really good shooter out there. I mean, there was a stretch a couple years ago, I think it was around mid to late November to I think January, where he was just fire. And that was really impressive to see for sure. I wanted to bring that back. I thought that would be a perfect young complementary piece to put with the rest of what they're building. But ultimately they didn't do that, and I don't know the reasoning behind it. The thing about DeAndre Jordan, and I'm bringing this up for a sidestep only because we basically locked up the vast majority of our cap space for this year in DeAndre Jordan. And I get it, they made the deal for him like right at midnight, but man, there's no way they could have known the NBA market for big men was what it was. That DeMarcus Cousins, granted, he would not have taken that deal for Dallas, but that he would go for a mid-level exception. That Julius Randle, again, not someone the Mavericks wanted, nor is he a center, but a guy that went for like 2 years and $18 million with the Pelicans. Like, it's just crazy to me what the big man market was in free agency. And that's the thing. Yeah, you had some of these mega contracts thrown out there, but now you have a lot of guys out there, and there's just no money. Like, there's no money for anyone to take these guys on. And for the Mavericks, man, I get from DeAndre Jordan's standpoint of why he came here. No one was going to give him $24 million. I mean, the Clippers weren't going to keep him at that point, and the Mavericks were willing and able to give him that money. So even though it's a one-year thing, and he probably would have wanted a little more security, he gets what he wants out of the deal. But man, if I'm Dallas, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, we had $24 million. What we could have done with that money, because no one was going to throw that kind of money at Jordan, I don't think. So you could have gotten him, say you get him for $18 million instead. Well, now you've got money that you can hang on to a Seth Curry. Like, it's hindsight, right? Hindsight's always 20/20, but they pretty much spent the vast majority of their cap right at 1201, and as a result, I think it kind of hurt their planning beyond that. Now, they did make a couple shrewd pickups. I think his name's Brokenhoff, the Australian League three-point shooter, international 50% from behind the arc, something crazy like that. And everything I've read on that says that that is a really shrewd pickup for the Mavericks, a really savvy pickup. So I like that a lot. I like what they're going toward in that regard. But you could have gotten him for dirt cheap in addition to hanging on to a guy like Curry. And I do think three-point shooting is going to be a little bit of a void for them with the combined absence now of Curry and McDermott. I never thought they were going to keep both. I thought Curry would be the one they wouldn't let go. So let me jump back at some of the comments here. Let's see. Cam Hicks, any free agent signings you think are on the radar or need to happen? I think Yogi Ferrell is going to be brought back. It's just a matter of what the deal is. Probably something similar to his previous deal. And I don't know. He fits really well here. I think he fits better with the Mavericks and what they do than what a lot of other teams could utilize him as. I mean, he's basically just a younger J.J. Barea to an extent. And it's funny because we also still have J.J. Barea. But I really like what he can bring to the table, and I think he's a good guy to hang on to. As far as other players that they could go after, there's not a lot of splash left to be made, at least with their cap figures. So I don't know of any other noteworthy moves that they're going to make. But you got some good deals that they're doing, like two-way contracts, obviously, Kostas being one. I think Ray Spalding has to be another one. I've really been impressed with what I've seen of his summer league performance. Let's see here. Mavs still have not made a move on a starting power forward or a real backup center. Hassan Whiteside, Monroe. For power forward, we know that they like to run Harrison Barnes out of the four. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's his natural fit. But I think Dirk and Harrison Barnes are probably your predominant ones at that position. They need to do something, absolutely, but I don't know what they do. And as for a backup center, they're going to play Salah Mejri or Moxley. That'll be the guys that back up DeAndre. And I don't have a problem with that, honestly. Backup center, I think, is pretty much solidified for what we expect the team to be. Power forward is a little bit more of a concern, though. Let's see. Thanks, Rangers King, on the correction on Summer League 2017. I thought they got to the final. They got to the semifinal where they lost to the Lakers. That's right, because you had the duel between Ball and Dennis Smith. So good correction there. I want Gordon, if anything, on power forward. Oh, wanted Gordon. Yeah, Gordon. Aaron Gordon re-signed with the Magic, so that's done there. I'm just trying to do a quick skim on this before I dive back into my run sheet. Cam Hicks' voice is fine. Okay, cool. Hopefully this is doing better. I've been trying to optimize my stream and get a better, consistent thing so I don't just have to throw up the stupid thumbnail every now and then and talk behind it, because I do like to have something where there's something on screen moving, whether that's me or whether that's some kind of animation. So glad that it's looking good so far. Three-point shooting could have helped. Luka should slick back his hair like yours, bro. And clean Gordon Hayward look. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, this is even for me having short hair. This is a little bit new. So let's see. Capela takes the qualifying offer. Yeah, if you watched my video right before free agency started, like the week leading into it, I did a video on eight options the Mavericks should target, whether that meant free agency or a trade or restricted free agents, whatever. For I said center position, but really it was front court because I did have like Randall in one of those two videos I did. Capela is my pie in the sky. That's who I want. And because there's not a lot of money out there, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of teams broke bank on just a few guys, and that's how someone like Boogie Cousins went for a mid-level exception. That's how you have some of these you still have some noteworthy free agents out there, and it's just because there's not a lot of money to be spent. I mean, now this is a different situation, but you have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who they're getting away from Carmelo. The question is whether they trade him or if they have to release him, stretch release basically, And of course, they'd rather trade him. But there's only currently one team in the league, Sacramento, I believe, who has the cap space to take him on. Translation, he's not going anywhere. He's going to be the stretch release, and then he's going to go sign with the Rockets. And hey, saying this being a Thunder fan as well and seeing how he did that team, good. He'll go to Houston and he'll tank that team because they basically are trading out Mbate and Trevor Ariza, and I botched that first name as well. But I think Houston took a step back, but that's neither here nor there for this particular conversation. Let's see. Yeah, DeAndre Jordan for 1 year is all right. I would have liked, ideally, to have a 2-year deal with a team option for year 2. I think that would have been better because I look at it and I'm like, man, we had all this cap money and then we spent it all on the one guy who I think we could have gotten at a better deal as well and then still been able to hang on to a guy like Seth Curry. But again, hindsight's 2020 when you're making deals at 12:01 at the start of free agency. You don't always see how things are going to fall. I think just 48 hours later, when they saw how the market turned out, they thought, whoa, we got the guy we wanted, but we might have overpaid given what the market actually is this year. Let's see. Yeah, I think Brokoff is a good replacement for Doug McDermott for sure. Having both of them would be redundant. So especially with the contract McDermott got, it makes a lot of sense to use Brokoff instead. Ellington, yes. Ellington re-signed 1-year deal, I believe. I think it's a 1-year deal, but he re-signed with the Miami Heat, who he was with most recently. Wayne Ellington is an intriguing prospect, especially for where we were at financially. But he had a swim here before, and he was not very memorable in his stretch here. And actually, when that happened, I don't know how many of you guys actually know this, maybe only a couple. I used to actually, when I worked for a different website, instead of running my own with Dallas Prospect, I actually worked for a different website and was actually a credentialed member of the media for the Mavericks. Well, not for the Mavericks, but covering the Mavericks. And I actually, for two and a half years, would actually get access pregame and postgame in the locker room. I say famous, this was my personal highlight. Rare time I'm going to actually curse here on this, but I got Mark Cuban to tell me to fuck off while he was on the Stairmaster. That was my shining achievement there, I feel. But to be fair, it was more in the sense of like him recognizing that I was a new face in the room, and then it's pretty much jokingly saying, well, you know what they say, you haven't made it in Dallas media until Mark Cuban tells you to F off, so fuck off. Like, looked me dead in the face, and I'm just like, yes, this is what I wanted. The absurd pregame interview with Mark Cuban crowded around a Stairmaster while he's just sweating buckets. And for whatever it's worth, for those who remember his quote on the NFL about how they were going to have a big drop-off in the next few years, the whole pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Technically, I was the first one to break that story. I just had no significant platform for anyone to notice that. But that was a lot of fun. I had post-game access to Carlisle pressers and locker room access as well. So I got to see guys out there like Tyson Chandler in his second run, Monte Ellis, Sean Marion, Chandler Parsons, guys like that. So, and Ellington was there when I was there as well. So that was a lot of fun. I'm hoping to actually get access to that again. But the whole thing with Dallas Prospect is being a startup of my own, I have to build up that reputation that gets us to the point where we can get that access again. So that's what I'm striving for. I'm going to see what I can do. I'm really excited about the potential of it and the kind of content I can bring you guys if I get that access again. Whew. If you guys like me now, you're going to love me then. But anyway, I'm off topic again. Tired mind tends to stray. Let's see. Imagine Wayne and Seth instead of Yogi. That would have been nice, but that's not on the table at this point with Wayne being re-signed and Seth being gone now. It would be great. I would actually agree with you, Rangers King. I would like that a lot. By the way, shout out to Rangers King. We brought him on recently. We're going to give him a run, basically, a kind of not a tryout, but basically bringing him on for kind of a test run with the Dallas prospect as a new contributor. So he's got a lot of great Mavericks scouting and outlook and all of that, and we're going to be bringing him in. He'll start having, scouting profiles and articles and all of that coming out on the website, which is going to be really cool. So keep an eye on that. And for anyone who's interested, hit us up. We are always looking to grow our network. We are trying to be the biggest, best independent sports entertainment media in the DFW area, and we're open to working with whoever. We don't just work with for the football side. We work with like Law Nation, Silver and Blue Nation, Big Game James specifically, and we work with like Okoye Media, Mark Holmes, Vach Lombardi. We have him on quite a bit as well. And as I'm building out this Mavs side as well, we're gonna look to find more people. Brought in Ini Nduka. He used to have his own podcast as well that covered the Mavericks, and he's an old friend of mine, so I brought him back into the fold, and I think we're going to be resurrecting one of his old podcasts called Sports Anytime here in the near future. So a lot of great stuff coming, guys. It's just a matter of getting going, right? So let's see. I don't think Dirk has officially signed on a new deal yet, but I think they literally have the money set aside. They're gonna make all these other moves, and then literally whatever money they have left is gonna throw to Dirk. And I'm guessing it's gonna be something in the neighborhood of $4 million, because Dirk has done nothing but take discounts for us since the title. Dirk has done nothing but take generous discounts for us. And to be fair, he's also in the top 10 on career earnings, despite all these recent years of making these very team-friendly deals. So he doesn't need the money, and it's his last year anyway. He's not going to pull a Kobe Bryant, and that's the most admirable thing, I think, about him. Kobe spent 20 years with the same team. Dirk has that record tied right now. He's about to beat that record this next season. But the big difference is Kobe was bleeding the Lakers dry in the end of his run. And, man, as good as Kobe was by that final stretch run, that was a shadow of Kobe. His last game was vintage, or at least closer to vintage, but Dirk did not bleed this team dry. So if Dirk makes 3.9 or 4 million or whatever, they're going to make all their other moves and then give him whatever is left, and that he's cool with that. I think he specifically opted out of his last year on his current deal, or previous deal I should say now, specifically so the Mavericks could have just that little bit more room that they could do something like this. Let's see. Who do you think will get more minutes, more backup point guard minutes, Brunson or Yogi? Early on, I think it's going to be Yogi. I like Brunson a lot. I said that before. I think he's actually a huge steal for the Mavericks in the draft. To get him in the second round is really nice. He's not huge. He's 6'3", a 6'3" point guard, but he was crazy efficient in college. He's a very good leader, good locker room guy. And I think he's very capable. I think he will be a noteworthy role player for the Mavericks moving forward. I don't think he'll ever be a starter. I mean, obviously being a point guard with Dennis Smith and all that, and then Luka's not a point really, but he's still a guy that will run the offense like a point. So for what he is, I think it's a good pickup, and I think he'll have good minutes. But I think early on it'll probably be Yogi getting those minutes early on, because Carlisle does like the veterans and trust the veterans more, and it's only been as the Mavericks have finally kind of embraced the idea of a rebuild, although they're still a little in denial, I think, on how quickly they can rebuild. It's only been in recent years that he's kind of had to warm up to the rookies and play them more. Let's see. Yogi need to chill out. Who's the other second rounders balling out? Ray Spalding, man. Pick number 56. I really like what I've seen out of Ray Spalding so far. He had a stretch in like his first 3 summer league games where he played like 46 minutes and had a combined 25 points, 16 rebounds, 4 steals, and like a block. And that's really impressive on that regard. Here's the thing I like about Spalding. He's a natural finisher. Like around the rim, he's a natural finisher. He can rebound, and he's got a good feel, I think, for the pick and roll in particular. He's good size. That all works as well. I think you'll see him later in the year, but I do expect he'll probably be a 2-way contract in the meantime. I think he's very good. I actually love the Mavericks draft. Like, initially, I was only really talking about the other three guys. You know, obviously Luka. I talked about Brunson a little bit, and then, you know, you have Kostas as well. For that, I was like, oh, well, that one's the flyer, and that one's great too. Just on the, hey, why not? Raw prospect, but let's see what we can do. And then you get Spalding, and now watching in Summer League, he's been probably the most consistent guy I saw out there. So I really like what I see from him. I think he could be a very good building block. Well, that's not a correct phrase. I think he can be a good role player for them for the next several years. I think so. I think he fits well what they want to do, and he'll be a good contributor. He just needs a little bit of time. And for pick 56, that's impressive. Let me check this out here. Ray needs defense to be a starter. I agree. He does need some work defensively and all that. But, you know, that's the case with most college players coming out. Defense is usually the lacking thing, because a lot of these guys, especially guys who are one and done, what makes them dynamic and explosive at the high school level, that makes them high-end prospects for college, like recruits and all of that, is their offensive skill set, their explosiveness and all that. Now, you have some guys who are an exception where they're just such athletic freaks that even though they're not the most gifted offensively, a la a Nerlens Noel, they can still break out in that regard. But a lot of times these guys get noticed for their offense more than anything, and then they go do 1 year of college wherein they're doing, you know, just what their strengths are to try and build their stock and everything going into the draft, and they don't really have those fundamentals. And that's part of the frustration I think a lot of coaches have with bringing in the rookies and then playing them heavy minutes. And I think it benefits a guy like Brunson and Kostas especially, that they'll come in. Now, obviously, Kostas wasn't in D1 or anything like that, but they come in, they're going to develop, but they're going to play the 2A contract, so they're going to develop in the G League. By the way, Rangers King, maybe you know this. Why did we change the name from D League to G League? Like, D League, Development League. Perfect sense. I don't understand what the G stands for. That's neither here nor there. Develop them there a little bit more, and then later in the year, especially if you run into a season like last year where you get into games that don't really matter much towards the end, then throw them out there. And like Motley, perfect time for him. I actually thought they waited a little too long last year to bring him in, but I think that's a good system for that. Give him a little bit of experience here, move him up for a little bit, give him some experience. It might take for the Freakle, Greek Freak Jr., not really Junior, not the second either. I'll just stick with the Freakle, the sequel Freakle. I think with him, it'll take 2 or 3 years, honestly, for him to really, really break out, but that doesn't mean he can't find a role in the meantime. It might be a 2A contract now, and then maybe you see him more next year, and then we'll go from there. But I think he's more raw than Giannis was when Giannis came over back in 2013. Let's see. Oh, speaking of Kostas, just while I'm here, since I didn't get to do a video like I had initially planned in the Summer League, I think it was the opener or the second game, where he goes off for, I say goes off, he filled the stat sheet a bit. 4 points, 7 boards, 2 steals, 3 blocks. That's all great. It really is. It's an impressive setup. 7 boards, I like that. 3 blocks, I really like that. And I watched the highlights back and everything. They were athletic blocks. I like it. But it shows also how raw he is offensively, because his jumper looks broke. That's going to have to develop with time. And holy crap, that free throw shooting. I think he was like 2 of 6 or 2 of 7 from the line. I mean, it was nothing good. You'd see him draw the foul. You're like, okay, very nice, very nice. Then he goes to the line and clank, bounce around, fall in. Like, okay, yeah, all right. And he's raw. I mean, the big thing he would bring is length, athleticism, rebounding, and finishing around the rim. If he put him on the line, though, then it might take some time. Shout out to Marcos Levy, like a boss. Gleh still hanging around, keeping it strong. Cowtown, Texas, Mavs Nation, that's what's up. Elliot W. John Mays as well. Let me see here. Ricky Rick still keeping things going. I like it. Andre, what's up? I think Motley should start. I start no. I think Dirk will come off the bench this year. I think the question is who they start, and I don't think that's Motley as the starter. I think they're going to run, let me think off the top of my head. They're going to run Dennis Smith, Wes Matthews, Luka, Harrison Barnes, DeAndre Jordan. That's going to be the 5 they run for their starters. Dirk will come off the bench behind Harrison Barnes. So that's what I foresee as the predominant lineup. Obviously, that changes a lot, whether it be injuries or rest or whatever throughout the season, but I think that's going to be the kind of default starting lineup for the Mavericks this next year. Let me see, make sure I'm not missing any good tidbits of information. Guys, if you have a specific question to me, hit the tag the Dallas prospect so it'll highlight it for me and I can actually see specifically the question, and that way I don't miss what you're asking. Let's see here. I'm just sifting through some of these, make sure I'm not missing that. Rick's asking if I think keeping DeAndre Jordan or maybe getting Capela next year. If Capela takes the qualifying offer and hits free agency again next year, that time unrestricted, hell yeah, I still want him. That's still exactly who I want. And he's a ways from what the Rockets are offering. I think the Rockets offered him something like a 4-year, $60 million deal. And he's like, haha, that's cute. I want $100 million. And that was the problem I said. That's why I at one point was saying that I wanted the Mavs to make an offer for him, because I thought the Mavericks could basically, Houston never got that close to LeBron this year in free agency for how all out they said they were ready to go. Remember hearing Chris Paul saying, hey, I'm not worried about my own free agency. I am going all out to get LeBron in Houston. They never got that close despite all of those claims, but I thought that while they were distracted over here dealing with him, that over here the Mavericks could throw money at Capela, and if they threw big money at Capela, not necessarily a max, but a handsome deal, kind of like they did with Chandler Parsons, that they could make it very difficult for the Rockets, and the Rockets would be forced to make a choice. Okay, do we have to take the poison pill and kind of overpay for what as far as what they wanted to pay, I should say, for Capela, or do they keep trying to go after LeBron and they let Capela go? Now, we saw them allow Bahamute to go. We saw them allow Ariza to go, and I think both of those losses are going to hurt them this year. I don't understand giving Chris Paul $160 million at this point. I mean, I get that you really want to show him, hey, man, we're all in. We're happy. We love having you here. But who were you bidding against at this point to keep Chris Paul? Honestly, who were you bidding against? Who was going to give 33 or whatever year-old Chris Paul $160 million in 5 years? Nobody. I like Chris Paul. I do. That's not true. I dislike Chris Paul. I'm kidding. Sort of. Kind of not really. I don't like his attitude, but I respect his game. Except for when he flops. But I don't understand who they really felt like they were bidding against there, and he wasn't going to go anywhere. Houston was absolutely his best bet for finally getting to the finals, let alone winning a title. And he was damn close this year, but they got weaker as a team, and part of that is they had to invest so much money in him that they couldn't keep some of these other essential components. So I think a guy at that point, man, you've made your money. All that's left for you is a ring. You should have, in my opinion, just done that. You're certainly not worth more than LeBron James is as far as what he got for the Lakers, from the Lakers. So off in the weeds again. Let me take a dive here through the comments. To answer your question, Rick's, I think if Capela does take a qualifying offer, hell yes, I take another stab at that next year, because you're going to have that big cap space open up with DeAndre off the books after this year. So if DeAndre is your true stopgap, like all indications appear to be, then you get a really good shot at still getting a young foundation piece in Capela. Now, Capela is not great at creating his own shot. That's a flaw to his game, but he can do a lot of good stuff as well for you. Because the Mavericks, their best big men, and frankly, there haven't been a whole lot of them over the years, they're not guys that create their own offense. Tyson Chandler never created his own offense. Even what they thought they were getting in Nerlens Noel does not create his own offense. So that I don't think that's a weakness. I mean, as far as Capela getting $100 million, yeah, sure, that's a weakness. But as far as him being a great piece to a young team and something you want to build around and something, if you're the Mavericks, you want to go try and acquire, hell yeah, go get him. Let me see. Ray is going to pass Motley on the depth chart, says Marcos. Maybe. I like Motley. I do. I do think, however, we haven't seen enough of him. I know some of his stats and everything and some of what we have seen, but I don't think we've seen enough of him to say definitively that, like, yes, this dude is the future of the center position. I think he's a good role player for us. I think he's a good bench player. Ray could pass him, but I don't think it's going to be immediate. I think Ray is going to take a year as well, probably mostly in the G League before that happens. Defense, right? They both got to work there. I don't know why people said Powell is overpaid. I think he's a very good player. There are many worse contracts. He had a good year last year. And it's not as bad or as painful of a situation as it was before. But initially when they gave him that new deal, it was kind of like, oh, you think that highly of him. My problem with Powell, I think for the role he provides and the cap situation in general, that's money I would rather allocate otherwise. I think that he's close already to his ceiling, and that's concerning, but I have no problem with him being on this team right now. I'm just thinking when his deal ends, I don't really know that I want to go chase him with a new one in a pen saying, please sign, please sign. Like, I wouldn't do that, but for now, I like him fine. Okay, I'm going to skim through here. Oh, here we go. Getting some of the people who started tagging me. Sorry, guys, I'm catching up in the chat. Ray Reddish, Paul George Jr. The Mavericks, unfortunately, aren't going to go on the philosophy of, hey, one more year of rebuild. They're not going to tank. They're going all out. They made that clear by going after DeAndre, that they're trying to strengthen their weaknesses of rebounding and rim protection. They were, I think, last in the league last year in offensive rebounds, and by a well mile at that. And they had issues, and DeAndre does address a lot of those, even if he's not quite the player he was in 2015. So that's for them. As for Paul George Jr., as a prospect, he's interesting, but the Mavericks kind of indicated that they're not focused on the draft next year, in part because they don't think it's that strong of a draft. For whatever reason, their analysis is that it's not a super strong draft and it's not worth their time. They'd rather try and win now with what they can get. Now, whether that's the right move or not, I don't know. I kind of think they should have had one more year of getting a high lottery pick. For example, Oklahoma City. I know I keep coming back to that. Kevin Durant the next year. Russell Westbrook. I think 2 years later, James Harden. Or no, it was the next year. It was like boom, boom, boom in a row. And they also got Serge Ibaka in that Harden draft as well, I believe. So, yeah, that's 3 years. And to their credit, they hit on 3 superstars, a couple megastars, frankly. Well, I guess 3 depending on which year you look at. 3 MVPs. So you got to hit on the picks, obviously, but that does make a huge difference as far as what you can build and what you can do, and I would rather have gone one more year. But I get it. You're trying to sell team fans and all that on, hey, this is it. We're bouncing back. We know these last 2 years have been kind of hard to watch, but we're going to be really exciting now. We're going to be Lob City without calling ourselves Lob City. All right, I'm going to jump to the ones that are actually hitting the tag now. Elliot W. Why have I never been able to get on board with Wes Matthews? Here's the thing. I don't think Wes ever fully bounced back from his torn Achilles. I liked him a lot in Portland. I was excited when they got him. I loved him for standing by his commitment in 2015 after DeAndre flaked, because Cuban actually offered him an out and said, look, I know you signing with us was a big part of the basically commitment that the big three of the future they were trying to build was going to be Chandler Parsons, Wes Matthews, and DeAndre Jordan. And then DeAndre flaked, and so Cuban said, okay, I'm going to offer you an out. And Wes stood by his commitment and has been nothing but a true leader for them. So even though he is not physically back to what he was, he's a good locker room guy, a very strong leader, good defender, and a streaky three-point shooter. He's limited, certainly off the drive as well, but I do like the idea of him. Now, that said, he's an expiring deal, and I am quite interested in the prospect of moving him any day between tomorrow and the trade deadline, whether that be for a young prospect of some kind or something to that effect. I think there's a lot you can get for him as you get closer to the deadline. Not a lot, like you're not going to get a crazy thing. It's not like a blockbuster, right? But I think he can fetch a nice price towards the deadline because he's an expiring contract. They had a hard time moving him last time because he had a full year left on his deal, and that was more money than teams wanted to commit because I think he's getting like 17 or 18 million a year or something like that. Should we trade? Ray, I'm not sure who you're referring to on that. We should have taken Kent Bazemore's offer for Wes Matthews. Yeah, I agree, Cam. I actually liked the idea of that. Now, Bazemore is another guy who got overpaid when the cap was going up and teams are just throwing stupid money around. But Bazemore, I did like him, and he would give you front court help. The Mavericks, this was the indication that they don't believe that strongly in next year's draft class because they are the ones who said no. They turned down the deal that basically, in addition for going from 5 to 3, would have been just Wes Matthews for Kent Bazemore. They believe they like what Wes brings and his leadership more. Oh, and Bazemore had 2 years left on his deal. It wasn't a one-year deal for a one-year deal. So they didn't like the idea of the extra money tied up. They didn't like the idea of changing out Wes Matthews, and they didn't believe that strongly in the following year's draft. So that's why they made that decision. I don't know that I agree with it. I do like Bazemore, but that is what it is. Chandler Parsons is overpaid. Hell yes, he is. The Mavericks were brilliant for not giving him a new deal when he opted out. He got 4 years, $94 million from the Grizzlies, and the Mavericks gave that same contract to Harrison Barnes, who, while I don't think Harrison Barnes is a world beater, by no means do I look at him and say, yes, if I was playing NBA 2K and I was rebuilding the Mavericks to title contention, I don't consider Harrison Barnes like a foundational piece. But the Mavericks like him a lot. It sounds like he's a gym rat, like he's a really good, really strong work ethic. You know, guys have come and gone over the years and called themselves, Chandler Parsons in particular, and called themselves gym rats. And, you know, that's the definition of what Dirk is. That's part of what's made Dirk so great over his career. And they would come in and they would say that, and Dirk would kind of comment every now and then. He would kind of comment, and it was more through suggestion that it was kind of a shot, but he would say, you know, I always hear guys say that, but I always end up finding myself alone in the gym at night. And I think that says a lot, and I think that's exactly what it was with Parsons. I think that's not to say he doesn't work, but he doesn't work near to the degree that guys like Dirk did. And it sounds like Harrison Barnes actually does come closer to that Dirk work ethic. So for that reason, they love him. They view him as the Michael Finley to the Luka Dončić and Dennis Smith Jr.'s Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki from circa, 2001? Or, I mean, I know Dirk came in 98, but I'm talking about like when they started to turn the corner. They believe that Smith Jr. and Dončić are a little further ahead than the first couple of years of Dirk and Nash in Dallas. Kind of like Max Keebler more than Powell. I like Keebler, or Kleber. Leave it to Kleber. I like him more as well, I think. I don't know that he is... I like the prospect of him. Now, I'm going to actually take a better look at him here soon and just as the season progresses, because admittedly, I did not pay as close attention to him last year as I probably should have. So I'm going to have to evaluate that as well this year. What do you think? What do I think Barnes' roof is? Asks Marcus. I think Harrison Barnes' roof. Ooh, that's a good question. So am I looking for a player comp for his roof? Because like I said before, the Mavericks kind of view him as like a Michael Finley. But if I'm comparing apples to apples, I would take Michael Finley 9 times out of 10 over Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes is bigger and therefore a better rebounder than Finley. But Finley was a much better scorer overall, way more clutch. And I think Finley brought more to the table overall than Barnes. So I think Barnes can get better. I don't think Barnes is ever going to be a 1. I don't. I think Barnes, the best thing that can happen for Dallas is kind of like what happened. And I keep going back to that Finley, Nash, Dirk narrative there. But that's the best thing that can happen for them if they follow a similar trajectory. If Barnes, like Finley, was the guy by necessity, and then you bring in 2 young studs, and they develop and supplant him. When Dallas's big 3 was its best, and I'm talking the first big 3 I ever really paid attention to of Dirk, Nash, Finley, it was when Nash and Dirk became kind of the 1 and 2. Now, Nash ran the offense, so Finley would score more a lot of the time, but I always felt like Nash was the engine to the machine. And before I try and dig further into that analogy and botch it, I'm just going to say that Dirk and Nash, to me, were the 1 and 2 of that, and Finley was the 3. Same thing needs to happen here. Harrison Barnes can be, for a good Mavericks team, the 3rd guy. Now, for a championship caliber team, he might be more like we saw in Golden State, where he needs to be a 4th option. And I think he could be a 3, but I think that's more his comfort zone. I think he's always going to be a guy who can hover somewhere in that 18, 19, maybe 20-point range. I don't think he's like anything we saw before, like a Dirk when he was leading the Mavericks and being just a beast all those years, averaging like 26 every year, every single freaking year. So we'll see, but I think he can go further. I don't think he's ever going to be like a true number 1 or even a number 2 on a good team, though. Realistic trade for Wes Matthews. Who is a realistic trade for Matthews for the Mavericks? That's tough because we kind of got to see what the situation is when we get to it, right? Who I could point to right now is probably different than what we would end up with if we did deal him at the deadline. Like if we traded him today, and that'd be tough to trade him today probably, but I'm not sure what we would get for him. It wouldn't be anything significant, because I think your price can go up a little bit as you get closer to it. You can pick up I think you can pick up a couple decent role players for him, guys who could have a significant impact on your team, but you're not going to like insert a different guy to be like his level of effective for the Mavericks plus 1 more. So I think it'll be a closer trade-off for that. That's a tough one. I'll revisit that as we get closer to the deadline. Sometimes you get a good team who suffers some kind of big injury or feels like a Houston, right? Houston lost 2 big parts of the defense. Granted, both of them were more so the 3, but they lost versatile defenders, and Wes can play defense on 2, 3, even a 1 sometimes, depending on who it is. And so you could see a team like that who thinks like, oh my God, I'm panicking. We got to win this. We got to do this. We need help defensively. The playoffs are coming up soon, and we don't like where we're at right now, our trajectory, yada, yada, yada. Okay, here, take this. And I don't know what that asset they offer us is, but it's intriguing. And I think in that situation, you could get a better deal than you could if you traded him tomorrow. So we'll see. Jumping straight to the next tag. What do you think of Carlisle going to Slovenia with Luka to get to know him? Asks Rough Raven or Reven. I love it. I do. He did the same thing last year with Dennis Smith Jr. going to, is it North Carolina or South Carolina that Dennis Smith is from? South Carolina. South Carolina. Carolina. Let's just say that before I make any further of an ass out of myself. I like it. It's the same thing, right? It's like a getting to know you tour. He goes there. He kind of sees, it's kind of just like learning who each other really is, and it ingrains him. That's not the word I'm looking for. It basically makes Luka or Dennis or whoever, they understand each other, right? North Carolina, says Marcos. Thank you. It helps them understand each other, and that's big, right? A lot of times you show someone, you teach them who you are, you introduce yourself, and you get a chance to show them where you came from and everything, your family, your upbringing, and all of that. And it helps to kind of form a bond. And what we saw with last year with Dennis Smith was that Dennis Smith's mom in particular was commenting on just how she felt he was in really good hands, that Carlisle was very gracious and all of that. And I think it's the same thing here. He's going to Slovenia. He's going to meet, Luka's family and his hot mom. Maybe that was a voluntary trip for Carlisle. I don't know. But yeah, he's going to he's going to meet him, and it just helps form a bond. And I think that's really important, especially in this case. I think it's even more important, honestly, because there's a cultural difference as well. Not like a major one, I don't think, but I think more of one than maybe we had with Dennis Smith in this case. And it's a good precedent to set. I liked it when he did it last year, and when I saw he was doing it again this year, I loved it as well. So I think it's an even better move to make here. Let me see. Okay. Cam Hicks, do you think the Mavs need a rebranding, new logo, and revamped uniforms? I think it really changed the stigma that the Mavs are a soft team, new generation of young talent. I've seen this picking up a lot of momentum, and honestly, I don't hate the idea. Initially, I love our uniforms. I do. Well, I hate the DAL, the DAL with the neon green. How do you not just put like DFW? Actually, I wouldn't even love that. Just put Mavs. I don't need a stupid city thing. The one with the city skyline, those are all right. I like them okay. I do understand the thinking that, the era of Dirk, you had one set of jerseys, even though he came into the league with the blue and green and all that, the old Don Carter hat on the M logo. I do understand it feels like the Dirk era. I wouldn't mind a rebrand, but I don't want a radical overhaul. You know what I mean? Like, I would want something... Honestly, I would like it if they found a way to kind of unite the two previous eras. I think that'd be really cool. And I've seen some really cool mock-ups on that as well that incorporate a little bit of the green. Yeah, I would like... I'd be interested in that. Do I think it's necessary? No, I don't think you have to do it, but I think it would be really cool to do, and it would, if you really want to introduce, like, hey, this is the new era, that'd be really cool. And maybe next year's the year they roll that out. Like, maybe this year they determine what that would be, like what they choose, and then they roll it out next year. So we'll see. Rolling back to the next person who tagged me. Where do you rank our 2011 title run and all-time NBA champions? My unbiased opinion, asks Elliot W. Well, you know something, Elliot. My unbiased opinion. Okay. I was about to hulk up there for a second, like, oh, let me tell you something, Elliot. For those who saw my Phantom NWO promo style finals prediction video, that was something. The 2011 title, speaking as unbiased as I can, I think it ranks as one of the best all time, and I'm not kidding when I say that. The Mavericks had to go through. Now, Portland, that was really the only team that you could look at and say, they were... I mean, that was a good Portland team. It wasn't an amazing one. But I think you go through a two-time defending NBA champion. Not only do you go through them, you sweep them. And that's a team that had been to the finals 3 straight years and were expected to go a 4th year. So to sweep them, damn impressive. You swept Phil Jackson into retirement. That's how good it was. Then you go through Oklahoma City, who they were young and up and coming, and that was their first trip to the West Finals for that team. But man, they weren't. They were still good. You had to go through 3 eventual MVPs. You went through Kobe, who was an MVP too, by the way. Basically, in that title run, the Mavericks went through 5 MVPs. They weren't yet MVPs. Well, Kobe had already gotten his, and LeBron. But the OK3, I hate that nickname. It always sounds like a mediocre Big 3. Oh, how's your Big 3? Oh, they're okay. They're an OK3. But the original OKC3 of Durant, Harden, and Westbrook. And Harden, that was really the year before he really burst onto the scene. He was really good, but it was really that next year he stood himself out as like, hey, I'm the 6th man of the year, and there's nothing you can do about it. You go through that young team as well, that young dog team, and that team was actually why Cuban blew up the title team. Was he looked at them and he thought, man, that is going to be a monster young team in the future. But you would think he would then embrace the draft, and instead of that, he's like, big fish, big super team, build a super team, which was ridiculous, but that's, again, off topic. So then you go through them, and you beat them in 5. You swept the Lakers in 4, obviously. You beat the Thunder down in 5, including a 15-point comeback in like 5.5 minutes in OKC in Game 3. I think it was 3. No, it was 4, Game 4. I was at that Game 3. And then you beat the Heat in 6. They weren't the first super team by any means, but the first, even the Celtics Big 3 that they formed. Now, that was through 2 trades. That wasn't through collusion. There we go. Get my fingers where they're not blocked there. Apparently, I'm directionally challenged when you invert my view. So then you go through a LeBron James super team in Miami, and that was a team who would go to 4 straight finals. So you beat 5 MVPs in your title run. You won, let's see, so you won 16 games. You lost 2 in the first round, none, 1 and 3. You went 16-5 in the postseason that year, and you did it with 1 All-Star. That can't be denied, man. Like that, it's probably the most underrated title run ever. The only one I would have put ahead of it in terms of the modern era, if they had done it, they didn't, would have been the 2016 Oklahoma City Thunder, because they had to go through a 67-win Spurs team, went up 3-1 and should have finished the job on a 73-win Warrior team, and then would have had to go through LeBron in the finals. Who did they face in the first round that year? Oh, right, Mavericks. That one doesn't have as much, that Mavericks team at least, doesn't add a whole lot of legacy to it other than saying, hey, we went through Dirk and an all-time great in that regard. But yeah, that OKC 2016 team, had they closed the deal, and I think they would have if they had gotten past Golden State, that would have been the all-time best run, I think. But they didn't finish the job, so to me, the modern era, and when I say modern era, I'm talking, hell, for the sake of modern era, let's just say 2000 to today, I think the Mavericks are, if not the best, then probably second best, the 2011 Mavericks. Really good question, by the way. I like that one a lot. Let's see. Fireblade, do you think that Kostas could be the biggest move for Dallas? Do you think Giannis could sign with the Mavericks in free agency? All right, so I did a video on this the other day. I think it last Monday. Man, has it been that long since I did a video here? Whew, okay. So I talked about, here's the thing. Kostas, he is raw as all get out. More raw than Giannis was when he came over in 2013. That's why Giannis was pick 13? Question mark? And Kostas, meanwhile, was pick 60. He's raw. He's rawer than raw, but he does have freakish length and athleticism, similar to his brother. Maybe not the same degree of athleticism, but really good athleticism. As I mentioned earlier, in his Summer League debut, he stuffed the stat sheet, 4 points, 7 boards, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Got to work on that offensive game a little bit, but I think he does bring a lot to the table. And I think for especially that pick in the draft, that's a damn good flyer to take out. You build him and develop him for a couple of years, he could end up being a really good role player for you. Now, do I think he's going to be a star like Giannis? Probably not, but that doesn't mean that he can't be a really good player for you. assuming he develops and puts in the effort. G stands for Gatorade, says Rangers King. Ah, there you go. Sponsorship wins again. Capitalism. All right. As for Giannis coming to Dallas, he's signed through 2021, I think. And it's a pipe dream, but I would embrace it if there was a way to make it happen. I think he's a really good 13, says Like a Boss. Nailed it. A little more conviction next time on my part, but thanks for that, Like a Boss. As for Giannis signing here, he signed through 2021 now. He does seem to like Luka. Talked about how he is one of the most exciting players in basketball to come out in recent years, and how he is basically physically and more mentally mature and developed than a lot of guys coming out at that age, and how basically he dominated in a league that's superior to D1 basketball. So he had a lot of high praise for the guy. That's really cool. The prospect of him coming here, there's a chance. There's enough little wisps of smoke in the air, I think, that it could happen, but it would take a perfect scenario breaking right for the Mavericks that doesn't feel super likely, but it is possible. And one of the biggest things, and I'm going to do a video on this soon. I did an article it was a little while back, I guess. It was with the Dallas Prospect. The 5 biggest regrets for Mark Cuban, his tenure with the Mavericks. And on it, one of the highest items I had, spoiler alert, was not drafting Giannis in 2013 and instead deciding that they wanted to keep maximum cap room open so that they could pursue a big fish. And the difference in pay, trading back for like Shane Larkin, was seriously like, dude, it was some minute freaking amount of money that just makes your head spin, where you're like, oh, you could have literally just asked Dirk to take that much less or that much more of a pay cut, and we could have freaking had the Greek Freak. Like, imagine this team right now, today, with the Greek Freak. Well, you can't do that, because if you had him, then you wouldn't have gotten Luka, and you probably wouldn't have gotten Dennis Smith, because you would have been better than that, but whatever. One of the greatest, it would be the righting of one of the greatest wrongs in recent Mavericks history if they could do that. Rangers King also says 2019's draft is less strong based on what he's seen. Above average like 2016. So there you go. Let's see. Comments jumped. Do I see a power forward that could fit the Mavericks? I got to look at what's still the available market that is a need for them. But as far as a significant role, I don't know who is available at that point, because like I said, they're going to roll with Harrison Barnes probably as a starter and Dirk coming off the bench. So with that being the case, I don't know that they're looking to make a big investment of any kind. Well, I mean, they don't have the money, but you know what I mean? Like, from a role perspective, make a big commitment there. What do I think Dennis Smith Jr.'s ceiling is? Damian Lillard is an interesting comp. I think he could be Russell Westbrook light. I think he could be Derrick Rose with a jump shot. Now, that might seem, I mean, we're talking about 2 very explosive guys there. I like the comp of Derrick Rose with a jump shot more. Westbrook, I like Westbrook, I do. But that doesn't mean I disregard the flaws in his style of play and his mentality that are there. So I would say it's probably best to hope his ceiling is more a Derrick Rose with a jump shot, assuming he can avoid those injuries. We don't want that. That's too much of a beatdown. But we'll see. I think that's probably his ceiling is somewhere in that range. Which, you know, hey, that was an MVP. Let's see. How do you feel about his first finals appearance from the Mavs in 2006? So he's talking Dirk there like a boss. Most say the 2006 NBA finals were rigged. Whew. All right. I think they were poorly officiated. I think the NBA basically told the refs to, I think they would review calls from game 1 and 2 and say that should have been called a foul regarding like a Dwayne Wade drive to the rim. And I think they pointed that out several times. And I think it kind of set in the mindset of, okay, when Wade goes to the rim, when he makes some flail like that and it looks like he got hit, we're just going to blow the whistle. Here's the thing. The Mavericks, it wasn't rigged, but it wasn't going in their favor either. You can have things going not your way and it not be rigged. They did have to choke away a game in Miami. Unfortunately, Dirk missing that clutch free throw that would have tied the game with like 10 seconds left. While the Miami Heat crowd sang "Looking for Freedom" by David Hasselhoff, who we found out earlier in the playoffs, I think somewhere in the San Antonio series, that great 7-game series, was one of Dirk's favorite songs growing up. I've been looking for freedom. I've been looking so long. So, with that being the case, they did have to let it go, and they got shellacked in one of those games in Miami too. And then another one, you had Avery Johnson losing his mind on the sideline and Josh Howard calling a timeout they didn't have. And it was badly officiated. And a lot of calls did not go their way. Dirk played good but not great. And I think, honestly chalk that up to Avery Johnson's failure. I think he absolutely came unraveled when they lost momentum. There was crazy stories like that when the team flew back into Miami, he like getting superstitious or something made the team change hotels in the middle of the night before a game. Like he was coming unglued. He was getting outcoached. His team was losing momentum. When Josh Howard called the timeout they didn't have and it resulted in a technical, it's because he looked over there on the sideline and Avery Johnson's all animated and just losing his mind as I lose my well-placed hair. And it's not, you need a cool operator at the wheel sometimes, and that was not Avery, and he proved that even further the next year, getting horribly outcoached again when they lost in the first round despite winning 67 games to the 8-seeded Warriors. So rigged, no. I think they had some element of coming unglued, and it came down to Pat Riley outcoaching Avery, and Dwayne Wade playing out of his mind, even if he was a flop artist in the process. People forget Brandon Roy went Super Saiyan God in that Mavs series, playing on bone-to-bone knees, literally, arguably. Yeah, no, I agree, Cam. That comeback, that like 23-point comeback or whatever it was in Game 3, I think it was Game 3, maybe Game 4. No, you know what? I think it was 4. Because when that happened, I honestly was like, holy crap, I think we're going to lose this series now after going up 2-0. And since we had been bounced in the first round of 4 of the last 5 years, it just felt like that's how it was going to go. And that was an incredible run by the Mavericks for sure. But that's a great point. Yes, Brandon Roy did single-handedly pretty much lead that charge and that win. Elliot, what do you think about the theory that Kostas is a recruiting tool for Giannis? I think there's some validity to it. Don't forget, when we were going into free agency, was it just last year? We signed Drew Holiday. He was supposed to be one of our big targets. Ended up not happening because the Pelicans threw stupid money at the guy. But he was supposed to be one of our big targets in free agency. And then late in the year, looky, Mavericks signed his younger brother to their G League roster. Huh? See what's happening? You want to come play with your brother? Yeah, I think there's something to that, but I don't think that it's not like they signed a guy that couldn't even play in the G League on his own right. Someone would have probably taken the flyer on Little Greek Freak. It's just a matter of where he was at that point in his development and all that. But I think he's a good prospect. I think it's not like they drafted me out there in my 6-foot slow unathletic body out there. So we'll see. But I think there's some truth to it, but it's not like it's an entire truth. It's like, hey, Why can't it be both? He can be a recruiting tool and a good prospect. Ha! Let's see. Where do you have the Mavs in the Western Conference? I have them 11th, says Henrique. 11th. Whew. That's pretty far down there, man. What were they last year? Like 13th? Something like that? It was low. I don't have them 11th. I would say they're probably... It depends on how certain things go, right? If Luka runs out there and he looks like he is just spot on, ready to lead this team, then maybe I could see them being challenging for that 8 seed. But honestly, right now, I don't think they're a playoff team. I agree with you there. I think they're probably somewhere in, maybe 11th's not too harsh. I would say floor is 11, it feels like, and things break right, it feels like 8. If they had kept Seth Curry, I could have told you 7 seed. I've seen some people freaking put them as high as 5th, and I'm like, dude, I'm a fan and I'm a bit of a homer. I don't know if I go that far. Not with the other stuff they lost. Like I said, Curry, losing him, I think that's going to hurt them. Curry, man, some people might, I guess, kind of forget. A couple years ago, he had that like a month and a half, 2 month stretch where just everything he touched was fire. But we'll see. There's still time for off-season moves to happen, so we'll see what can shake up maybe. Great power forward we could sign in 2019 would be Justice Winslow. I'd call Dennis Smith Jr. ceiling a more efficient Kemba Walker, says Rangers King. See, this is our new scout for the basketball and specifically the Mavericks side of the website. By the way, that website, if you've not been there before, thedallasprospect.com. So yeah, Rangers King is going to be writing for us some more, doing even, I think, some maybe video stuff eventually. But we're going to be talking a lot of these prospects, and dude's got a knack for this kind of stuff. I'll admit, definitely more well-rounded knowledge than I have on some of these guys. Sometimes when you guys ask me a question about, like, oh, who should the Mavs go after? And he's like, here's 4 names. I'm like, yes, one of those. That sounds good. I always typically have to look into it a little bit, but more often than not, I find myself agreeing with his analysis as I continue to throw him all kinds of shout-outs in this stream. 06 finals were definitely rigged. Documented that the refs from that series went to prison for betting on games. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Here's the thing, though. The guy threw a lot of noise out there, not just about that series as well. His name is somehow escaping me right now. Donahue? Tim Donahue? Donahue? Something like that. I hesitate to say rigged. Again, I think that the refs were kind of conditioned by the league maybe to look for certain fouls, and it maybe skewed more towards how the Heat played rather than the Mavericks. But the Mavericks had to contribute to the collapse, man. I say that bittersweetly, admitting that. For the most part, I'm right there with you that I say Dirk should have 2 rings. Dirk should have 2 rings and be unquestionably top 10, 12 in the league history. But he got robbed of the first one, whether it was by his own coach's ineptitude, the referees, the league, whatever. I mean, if you want to add some fuel to that fire for conspiracy, young Dwayne Wade breaking out is much more marketable than a 27, 28-year-old Dirk, a German star whose game is not slashes to the rim and thunderous jams, but rather smooth, silky fadeaways. But I don't want to get into all that right now. I don't think it was rigged. I think it was favorably leaning in their direction. To me, rigged is like Mavericks had no chance because everything was called against them. And I think 2 of those games, which would have won them the title, 2 of those games I think they had to help contribute to the collapse. Let's see. We can see clearly that Dallas wants to get wins, but I honestly think that they are not there yet. Do you think Dallas should tank this year or try to play for the playoffs, says Fireblade? Do I think they should tank? I think that it would be in their best interest, probably, if they wanted to be a legit contender, to go one more year in the lottery, but it's not a strong draft class believed to be right now coming out, and they've been bad for 2 years, and they don't want to be bad anymore. I don't think Carlisle likes it. I think Cuban gets anxious about it because their viewership has been way down in recent years, recent being the last 2 years, and as a result, I think that it has made them want to go forward. You know, when I was talking about potentially trading for the 4th pick and Chandler Parsons from the Grizzlies, now that deal ended up not happening because they ended up getting a commitment from someone they really liked, Wendell Carter, that they took that off the table as a consideration altogether. But I thought that was critical because you already had Dennis Smith, and then you would have gotten 2 more major prospect stars. And I took the one defensive guy. I took the one defensive guy and Bamba, and then I took the guy. And now I was pushing, admittedly, for Michael Porter. I looked at that from the perspective of believing everything was good with the back, and it sounds like him falling all the way to 14 was because the last medical reports were quite to the contrary of that, and no one really wanted to give him that commitment because it sounds like he might not even play this year. But that would give you 3 stars plus like $70 million in free agency next year. So I was looking at that and just salivating like, give me that. But you got Luka, you got a good prospect. I think they could benefit from having one more because I do fear them getting in that purgatory. Because as you get into year 2 of Luka and /3 of Dennis Smith and onward, they're going to get better and you're going to win more games. And then you're going to get caught in that purgatory they were just in where you can be good enough to get to the playoffs, but you're not a real contender. So that you don't want to get there. And I think that's unfortunately their current trajectory where it feels like they're headed. So I think they should go one more year. Maybe not call it tanking, but not going all out necessarily, kind of like they treated the start of last year and the year before that. But they're going to go for it now, like it or not. I think the Mavs could have like 10 more wins if they weren't tanking last year. I agree. And not only that, you look at how many close games they lost last year. They lost like something like 22 games that were within like 4 or 6 points or something. Like led the league in that category, which is like an obscure category, granted. But if you win 10 of those, not even half of them, you're a 34-win team. 33-win? Whatever. You're a much better team. You're not a playoff team, but it's a very different outlook. Let's see. Like a boss. I feel like Luka could be the next face of the franchise. I think there's something to that. I think him and Dennis Smith could be certainly the 1-2 punch face of the franchise. And Luka, I don't know if he has a higher ceiling. I think he's got a comp of a Mono Ginobili, but I think he can also be better. But you know, someone put it this way that like, oh, well, you know, Mono won 3 rings, so he's got to win 3 rings too. Man, Mono Ginobili, he's an all-time great, sure, but he was on a team with an all-time great coach, an all-time power forward, and a certainly of the 2000s great point guard in Tony Parker. He was the third wheel on a very well-oiled machine that was built to be a dynasty, even though their reign of dominance kind of stretched out and never could repeat for whatever reason. So that I disagree on that. I think Luka's got a very high ceiling, and I could see him being the face, certainly. Let's see. Terror T. Send us beer for 1,111 subs. By the way, you deserve much more. Well, thank you very much. Send beer. Tell you what, I can do a live stream one night. Okay, here's an idea. I don't know how many of you are actually in the Dallas area, but we can have a party of sorts. Sometime during the season, I'll do a live stream, live remote at Mexico Restaurant and Club in either Plano, Texas or Allen, Texas. They're distance-wise not that far. But that's a location we've hit up several times in the past for live streams, whether it was the NFL draft or we did another one where it was like a happy hour event, and we had people out and good time, drinks and all that. We'll do something like that one time during it, and I'll do a live stream, and we can I'll hang out with you guys, have some drinks, and we can even do I'll probably even see about bringing some of you on just to get your reactions and talk a little bit. But we'll figure that out when season gets here. I definitely want to do more and connect with you guys more and all that. And I think that'll be a lot of fun that we can do a live remote Mavericks watch party. That'll be sweet. But yes, as he mentioned as well, I think I don't know what I am right this minute, but we've gone to like 1,111 subscribers here in the last month or so, just from all this basketball stuff. And I'm very grateful to all of you who support us and all of that. It's definitely a blast to come on here and talk Mavericks with you guys. Cam Hicks, that's a great conspiracy point that Dwayne Wade was more marketable. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you gotta think. You gotta think deeper. You gotta go to the next level. Let's see. Henrique, I have Golden State, Houston, Oklahoma City, the Lakers, the Pelicans, Portland, Jazz, Denver, and Minnesota, as well as the Spurs. Yeah, man, if there was one franchise that could trade Kawhi Leonard and land gracefully on their feet and still be at least relevant, it's the freaking Spurs. I want to hate them. I do. Not just because the early 2000s and the Mavericks, fighting bloody fights with them, but also then when my Thunder were coming up and I had to watch the same freaking thing, like 3 matchups in the Western Conference Finals, and I think we lost 2 of them. Well, obviously, because we only went once to the finals, but all the same, I want to hate them, but I just respect too much what they've been able to build. And they don't even have like the conspiracy and controversy that like the Patriots for the NFL have. So what they're doing, man, it's incredible. I can say that I still want to beat them down, beat their teeth in on the court, of course, not a violent thing, but I want to beat them certainly, but I can't hate them like I used to say that I hate them. So yeah, that could certainly happen, Henrique. That's not a bad thing. I would have a hard time arguing with you on that. I feel like Luka's going to be the next, is going to be in the Mavs his whole career and the next face of the franchise, says like a boss. Face of the franchise, yes, I absolutely see that. It's so incredibly rare to have a guy that is a face of the franchise, an all-time great, be a lifer now. I mean, there's a reason that, look at today's NBA. Kevin Durant was viewed as the son of Oklahoma. He was beloved in that entire state, and he ripped their hearts out to go chase guaranteed titles and a dynasty. To each their own, I guess, but loyalty's not a thing anymore, man. And more guys say it, not just Durant, but LeBron. Fans want them to be loyal to their city, but ownership's not loyal to the players. It's a business. And when the players treat it like a business as well, suddenly the fans get mad at the players rather than the ownership. So I would like to see it. I hope so. But don't be shocked if it doesn't happen for some reason. We can hope for a good 10-year run with Luka. 10, maybe more if we're lucky. But there's probably going to come a time where, if trends continue, where that eventually does have to part. But let's see what he develops into before we decide how sad we're going to be. Let's see. Chia. Man, you guys coming in hot with all these questions here tonight. Here I was talking in the start of the stream like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm probably going to do like a 20-minute podcast. And whew, hour 23 minutes in now. I'm actually kind of revitalized by it all. Let's see. How long, Cam asking again, how long do you think Coach Carlisle continues to coach the Mavs? I just said that in a redundant way. Top 3 coach in the league. Yes, top 3 coach, no doubt. The only reason the Mavs haven't fully cratered post-title has been because of Carlisle's greatness. To be honest, I was surprised he re-upped with us the most recent time he signed, because not a lot of people want to have rebuildings, and I don't think he's a coach who's naturally geared towards rebuilding because he's done a lot. He's been great for a long time, and I'm glad he got his title here. But I don't know, man. I kind of view it through the lens of How long will he be here? I think maybe this could be a revitalizing thing for him. Let me think. What's Carlisle's age? Someone in the comments, if you want to fire that off real quick. I'm going to look it up as well, just to see here. But his age isn't crazy. He's 58 years old, so he's not super old by coaching standards. I could see him, if Dennis Smith Jr. and Luka can elevate this team to that next level, I could see him enjoying a revitalization as coach and being here another 6-7 years. If they don't develop well and the team stays bad, then maybe he moves on somewhere else. Or if he's not willing to do that, then maybe he does pack it up after 2 or 3. I don't know. But I hope they keep him around as long as he's wanting to stay around, because replacing that dude's not easy. He doesn't get enough love because we've been bad for a while. But the dude is one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the league, probably. I would probably say Popovich and Stevens are the 2 I would put ahead of him. Terra T, that sounds so great, but I'm from Germany, Berlin. Ah, man. All right, well, we'll pour one out for you, Terra T, at the live remote. We'll do an on-air toast for you if you're on the stream. Just give me a shout. Let's see. Or, I'm not wearing one now. I was wearing one earlier today. If you want to support Dallas Prospect, buy a Dallas Prospect shirt. We're selling them for $15. Or you can support us on Patreon, and I think the $10 level there gets you a shirt as well for free. Well, supporting us, and it's like our thank you. But all options as well. The version of the shirt I have, let me see. I can edit the stream here. It's going to be crazy for a second because I'm about to throw a graphic up on screen for our new logo. If you haven't seen it, this is going to be crazy. It's going to like encompass my entire face. But no, that's not it. Here it is. Wha-bam! Oh, it didn't go over my face. It's just over here in the corner. But yes, this is the new Dallas Prospect logo that we're starting to kind of roll out. And we're going to have that on the... Well, we have that on the new t-shirts that we're putting out as well. So if you want the shirts, hit me up. Place an order. We're everywhere, man. We do Mavericks, we do Cowboys. I sent one of our contributors this weekend to the National Fantasy Football Convention in Fort Worth, and he got photos wearing our Dallas Prospect shirt with Rico Gathers and Jerick McKinnon. A lot of players like that. Vince Young, I think he got a photo with as well. So we got those on the Facebook page for those interested. But yeah, we're trying to grow the merch and grow the brand. So if you want to hit it up, and I'll send them out to you. Let's see. Oh, he's talking about Luka, like a boss is talking about Luka being the face. Sounds just right because of the storyline of having a veteran who was not born in America being for the team his whole career. Yeah, yes, there are some similarities between Dirk and Luka's stories for sure. Luka's a much more known quantity at this point than Dirk was coming over. That was a different age. There wasn't a whole lot of scouting going on for that. But yeah, it's interesting for sure. There is parallels there that should be explored further, honestly. Marcos, I'm from Panama. Became a fan because of Dirk. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Shout out for checking us out here as well. Henrique from Brazil. Oh man, that is awesome. Cam here in Fort Worth. Man, you can make that drive when we do the show in Allen or Plano, depending on which location we do the show at. Sweet, very nice Mexican restaurant and club. Their millionaire margaritas. Holy God, so good. Rangers King. Hey, if you can do an event at the Allen Mexico, I'll definitely be there if my life isn't a mess. Of course, I'd have to be sober. Yes, you in particular would definitely have to be sober. But yeah, absolutely. We've done 3 or 4 events there. I've done 3 events overall there. I did 2 football-related ones. One was like a happy hour where we talked Cowboys, and if you know who Computer is from 3-6 Mafia, we had him out there as a guest. He's a lot of times on like 105.3 The Fan or DallasCowboys.com. The Ticket, 1310 The Ticket here in Dallas. He's on with Bad Radio, Bob and Dan a lot. And we had him out. We've had him out both times. We did a live stream there for the NFL draft as well. And I actually did, on more of our pop culture side, one of our local bands here in Dallas, heavy metal, kind of group metal, hard rock band, Dark Avenue. I had them on for actually a live stream interview / acoustic set. That was really sweet. We did that a while back. And, you know, the lead singer, all those guys are great. Very down to earth, very humble. The lead singer as well, Mario Cadena, he'll probably be on sometime with us to talk Mavericks. He's a huge sports fan, and he's interested in talking Mavericks anytime I talk with them. So I told him I'll have to bring him on the podcast sometime. But, yeah, man, we're trying to do everything. If you look into the archives of my videos, I've got some film review and analysis stuff in there as well, some theories and all of that. We do music interviews and all that, trying to flesh out the kind of Dallas music scene. And we got actual film reviews and even some lists and rankums and stuff like that. So we got more coming. I know the YouTube channel, for those of you who are watching here, you know us for Cowboys and now Mavericks. I'm trying to broaden the horizons for us. It's just I am but one man, and there's so much to talk about, and I try to give you guys what you want. So if you got suggestions or ideas from other stuff you'd be interested in, let me know. I'm listening. Call me Fraser Crane. I'm listening. That is the lamest, most out-of-date joke I have made on this stream. Congratulations, me. Mighty Eye, San Francisco. I was there back in December. Gle, Fort Worth. Well, that's what's up. Fort Worth. All right. Don't know that one. I'm just playing with you, Gle. Let's see. 8 to 10 years for Henrique on his fandom of the Mavericks. That's awesome, man. Oh, man. Don't forget, guys, if you got a question for me, you gotta tag me in it. Otherwise, it gets kind of lost in the shuffle for me, and it's tough to find through without sitting in silence and just doing nothing. Let's see. You've got a Napoli, Jay Witt, and Look going down. Napoli, all right. Definitely run with it with the ladies, brother. Well, that's a nice thing to say. The missus might not be happy if I'm cruising for ladies with my new haircut, but she likes it a lot, so that works for me. Let's see. Napoli, I like that. Yeah, Marcos, I'm trying to find the comment you had. Basically, why we talk Cowboys, yes, the Cowboys are a huge content driver for us, for sure. Are a huge content driver for us, for sure. And, you know, we were fortunate in that regard because when I just started out with the Dallas Prospect, I had a little bit of notoriety from previous websites I had worked for, but I had been a writer then. I never was on camera or doing podcasts. And as a result, when I started the Dallas Prospect, I had like almost nothing as far as carryover audience. And so my working, yes, this is a CM Punk t-shirt, best in the world, it says on the back, without me awkwardly turning around and flipping on that. I'd be afraid of slapping the mic or something. But yeah, and wrestling content too. I'm going to try and do more of that as well. Fantasy booking stuff and some interesting stuff of that note. But yes, so when I started doing the Dallas Prospect, I was very fortunate to meet up with Law Nation and start working with him. Through him, I met Silver and Blue Nation, and through really the combination of them, I met Ari Timken, Phantom, and he's also with 105.3 The Fan now, formerly with ESPN San Antonio. And yeah, it's just an open network, man. I'm trying to build a Dallas Prospect network that's just an open network of content creators, writers, podcasters, video content producers, you name it, man. Sports, pop culture, whatever. Big 12 football, NBA, you name it. I'm trying to cover it. I have big ambitions, and sometimes my eyes are what's that expression? It's like your eyes are bigger than your mouth, but I'm not eating it in this analogy. So whatever, you get the idea. Same gist. But yeah, it's a grind for sure. And sometimes I got a million ideas, and if I could do this full time, if I could get this site, channel, whatever, generating revenue, and we get sponsors and things like that, and we can start doing, merchandise sales and all that, then I'll be able to do this full time, and I'll be able to put out a load of new content. In the meantime, I just have to kind of sample some different stuff and try stuff here and there. But I got a lot of cool stuff coming. Let's see. Is there anyone in Summer League who, based on their performance, you wish we had drafted? So in the I really like what the Mavericks did in the draft is the thing. Like, I think Luka was a good pick, even though he wasn't the number 1 guy I wanted. I would have said he was the number 2 I wanted, because I always thought he would go somewhere in the top 4, which he did. And so I didn't think he'd be a player for Dallas at 5, which he wasn't. So for that reason, I turned the debate into Michael Porter Jr. versus Mo Bamba. And so even when I talked on the theory of getting 2 guys with that Memphis trade that never happened, it was through that lens of getting, hey, Porter Jr. and Bamba. Couldn't happen, unfortunately, but Luka was my number 2 guy of those 3. If you would have told me I could have any of the 3, I probably still, admittedly at the time, would have told you Porter, but I understand why they didn't take Porter. I still think he has a very high ceiling, a KD-like ceiling. I don't know why I just over-accentuated that word, ceiling. But all the same, I think that they got their guy there. Brunson in the second round, that is that's basically another first-round talent to add. Dude was crazy efficient at Villanova. Leader on that team, a player of the year, 2-time champion. I mean, dude was great. I think he is going to be a very good role player for the Mavericks moving forward for years to come. And then take out the flyer on Giannis's brother, Kostas. Kostas? I know how it's spelled, but it seems like when I've heard it pronounced, it's different. I'm going to just say a little Greek freak. They got him, and I like Ray Spalding too, so there are plenty of guys who showed out that technically we could have gotten, but I really do like. I think this is the first time I can think of a complete draft effort from the Mavericks in my lifetime, and that's awesome. That's awesome. The closest comparison you could have to this, maybe, I mean, sure, obviously the Dirk draft, but other than Dirk, I don't know how much they really got in that one in 98. But you also look at, 03 when they drafted Josh Howard and then signed Marquise Daniels, free agent, and he was really good for them for several years. So that was cool. In terms of the local music scene, I know one guy. Oh, and in terms of projecting the Mavs record, I'd put them in the mid-30s if DeAndre Jordan revitalizes himself and Luka. Yeah, Rangers King, if you know a guy interested in the local music scene, hit me up. We've been befriending, the opposite of what I just said. Befriending Dark Avenue, and let me see here. They actually gave us a liner the other day as well. I think you guys will hear this. Hopefully you guys heard that. Dark Avenue hitting us with our tagline. I guess I had my headphone on, so I couldn't actually hear it. One more time, because I like the liner anyway. Oh, so nerdy on my part. Yeah, they're awesome, and they know everyone in the music scene as well here in Dallas, and they were talking about possibly being able to get us any number of other interviews like we did with them, interview an acoustic set for the stream, and that's cool because we'll put that on YouTube, we'll put it on Facebook, we'll put it on our website, live streaming it. That's how we do. But let me see here. I'm starting to get up against it on time, guys. I'm gonna take, one sec before I commit to that. Great to see all this Mavs coverage on here. This is Cam. Great to see all this Mavs coverage on here and love here because of the majority of the big platforms in DFW just cover the Cowboys. And what others are saying, regardless of the Cowboys earlier. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the big reasons I wanted to take on this whole thing with the Mavs and the NBA draft and free agency, because I recognize that too. Like I kind of noticed a void, honestly. One guy that kind of helped direct me into actually getting on camera, out from behind the camera, I went behind the camera like a cameraman, but off camera, just writing articles and stuff. And I still do that. But it was actually, now this isn't the Mavs guy, but RJ Young, who covers the Oklahoma Sooners football team. He actually, he's so good at what he does. And I noticed, like, man, he found a really good niche on YouTube. Nobody was doing OU football coverage the way he is. And I started to kind of look at the Mavericks thing, thinking like, okay, well, if I want to do something similar, what could possibly be my niche? And I love the Mavericks. I played basketball growing up. I didn't play football. I've watched football pretty much my whole life, so I can talk about it. And I have a weird knack for remembering stats and little trinket facts and information like that. But basketball was always my sport. And when I noticed there's not a whole lot here, I feel like, for the Mavericks as far as major channels and coverage, this could be a nice kind of home for myself, and a nice community I could build here with all of you. And you guys make this work. Otherwise, if you guys weren't here, it would just be me awkwardly talking to myself and making God knows how many awful jokes, because without your questions, I'm just trying to pad time, and I'm thinking of any stupid, awkward joke I can think of, and in that case, most of them would fall flat on my face. How does a joke fall flat on my face? Moving on. Don't think about it. Shake it off. Shake it off. Because crazy good when we see a push for 500. Also really think we would have drafted Gary Clark over Kostas. Gary Clark, okay, that's interesting. That'd be a great breakdown, Rangers King, if you want to do a piece on that or something. Even just a write-up or something. We could feature that on here. I might have to get you on a podcast sometime, a call-in or something at least. Love Mitch Robertson, okay. But we wanted, DeAndre Jordan in free agency instead. Jalen Brunson, a comp for Derek Fisher. Both are left and shoot fighters. On your thoughts? I think that's an interesting comp. I do think that's a good comp. I think he might actually bring. He's bigger than Derek Fisher, so that's interesting there. He could, I think, play better defense maybe as well. Maybe I'm falsely projecting that, but I like where your head's at. The only other team that had just as good of a draft as us, it's not better, as Phoenix. Yes, love what Phoenix is building. Honestly, that's scary because they're one of the teams that was behind us in terms of like pecking order in the Western Conference, and I feel like they had such a good showing in the draft. They're going to be right there on that level with us, if not trying to step past us. So that's a team you got to look out for that's below us, and there were not many teams below us last year. I love this kind of streams, bro. Keep it up, man. Greetings from Puerto Rico. Salute, Fireblade. Thanks for watching, for sure. Shout us out. If you got friends or whoever want to watch Mavs content, talk Mavs, hit us up, man. That's what we got. I'm going to be doing at least one Mavs stream a week, I think, moving forward. And during the season, I'm going to try and find time to do more of these. So, again, you guys make this work. It's just me otherwise, and I'm just sitting here talking to myself like a crazy person. So, oh, Cowboys X Factor in the building. Shout out. Someone hitting me with my DDP moniker. That's what's up. DDP with Doug and Seth gone. Yogi is likely coming back. Yes, indeed, Yogi Ferrell is very likely coming back. Mike Fisher of 105.3 The Fan said that the deal was basically at the 1 yard line. They rescinded the qualifying offer only because they can basically get him for cheaper. So he fits here really well. He's basically another JJ Barea, which is kind of funny since we also have JJ Barea. But I want to bring Yogi back. I'm angry as hell that we didn't bring back Seth. McDermott, I could live with because of what he got elsewhere, but I am really, really mad that we did not hang on to Seth Curry, especially for that money. Maybe they know something we don't. They were right about Chandler Parsons' knee when he left, so maybe they're onto something. Maybe he'll crater and we'll find ourselves saying the same thing. I mean, DP Dallas prospect. Cowboys X Factor, what's up? You don't gotta say DP, it's DDP. Diamond Dallas prospect. That's what the moniker is. Let's see. Tell you what, guys. I got time for 5 more questions. Got to hit the tag, though. Got to tag Dallas prospect in the thing. Let me see here. Look over my notes real quick before I hit these questions. Anything else I wanted to mention? I think I already kind of hit on everything major that I had notes-wise on here. So, yes, 5 questions. I got time for 5 questions if you got it. And we'll get to work planning during the season that watch party for the Mavs. Just come out to Mexico. I'll set you guys up. I'll hook you up. If you come out for the event at Mexico, tell them that you're there for the Dallas prospect. You'll get, I'm going to say food and drink order. I bet you I can swing that. Definitely drink, but maybe even food. I'll hook you guys up. I'll do what I can on that. But yeah, the better show out we have there, the more likely we are to be invited back for more of them. And we can make this a monthly thing for all I care. How about that during the season? Anyway, let's see. So we got a lull here. You guys just out of questions? What's up? You guys run out of questions? I don't know what's happening. What's happening? I'm still streaming, so I'll just talk to myself for a little bit, I suppose. Yeah. Oh, here's one. Cam Hicks. Always on top of it. Random. More important to the franchise at the moment. Dennis Smith Jr. with the Mavs or Dak to the boys. Woo! More important to the franchise right now. Dak is a lightning rod for controversy as far as perception. People love to hate him, but I think he gets a lot of unjust hate. His first 25 games, and that's including his playoff game, very, very good. His final 8 games, not so good, but he only had his left tackle and all-star or all-pro, whatever, running back as Zeke Elliott on the field in those final 8 games for a grand total of 3 plays. So he might have cratered, but he's never been a quarterback to carry the whole show himself. He's not a Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. He is a complementary quarterback who works best when he's accentuating the team's offense as a whole. And as a result of that, I think that he gets a lot of unjust hate. I'm gonna say because of where the perception is for the Cowboys versus the Mavericks right now, that Dak is more important. If the Cowboys are going to compete and really try to win a Super Bowl in the next couple of years, Dak has to be legit. Dennis Smith Jr. just needs to develop. He's at a much, their comps are really about the same. It's going into year 3 of Dak, year 2 of Dennis, but I'm going to say just because of the expectation for where the team is expected and trying to be, he has to be greater for the Cowboys than Dennis has to be for the Mavericks. Woo, getting next level on these questions here. Crossing over. All right. Let's see. Marcos, my expectations for Dirk this year. I think it's going to be coming off the bench. I think we're going to get 1 year of that. And I think he's probably going to average something in the neighborhood. He'll still shoot good percentages, but I think he's going to average something in the neighborhood of 14, 15 points. Solid. This feels like the send-off for Dirk. I know this is obviously the last year most likely for him, but I think this is the swan song season in a literal sense as well. You're going to see a reduced role. It's going to be less about him. And I don't think he has maybe he has one more major milestone to pass, but here's the thing, LeBron's going to catch him anyway before he hits that next milestone if he can hit it. And as a result of that, it's not going to be, he's not going to ascend higher on the all-time scoring list than he is right now because LeBron's about to catch him already, which is insane. Are you live streaming during the Mavs games? Terror T asks. I did not last year. I might do it sometimes this year. I can't do every game, man. There's too many games. But I might be able to do that here and there this year for sure. And if I'm not live streaming during the games, I'm damn sure live streaming either after a game or the following day. Unless it's a back-to-back, in which case, come on. I can wait until that back-to-back or something ends and then maybe talk about it. I'm trying to sift through and find the best questions here of what we got because we do have obviously more than 5 on the screen. How long after Dirk retires does he get a statue? For me, next year. The next year after he retires. If he retires after this year, damn it, I want a statue up there to opening night the following season. The man deserves it. Don't wait for it. Just build it, damn it. And if it's not a one-legged fadeaway, then there is nothing right in this world. It is supposed to be that, absolutely. So don't get it twisted. They should immediately put it out there, immediately, because that dude is everything to this franchise in a way that very few players ever have been to their respective teams. Do I think he can catch Wilt on the scoring list? He might catch and pass Wilt, but here's the thing. LeBron's going to catch and pass Wilt too, so Dirk's not going to move up higher on the scoring list. He might pass Wilt, but he's not going to move up because LeBron will catch Wilt first, I bet. Oh, man. Let's see. Do I think Dirk's swan song will be like Kobe's? The thing is, Dirk said when Kobe was doing his, and someone asked him if he wanted something similar when he goes out. He said no. Dirk is too humble for that. He doesn't want the going away tour where everyone gives him gifts at every opposing arena and all of that. And he doesn't want that. And that's why now when he was doing his exit interview this year and people were talking about, oh, next year is the final year, it sounds like. You are coming back, right? Yes, you are? All right. How you feel about this? And he's like, well, maybe it's my last year. We'll see, He's kind of trying to dispel it because he doesn't want that attention. Dirk's way more soft-spoken and humble than Kobe. Kobe, man, he's like, yes, I am great. Celebrates me and my Mamba-ness, my black Mamba-ness. That sounds dirtier than I was intending. But yeah, it's definitely a Dirk's he'll probably get attention. It's inevitable. People are gonna assume, but he won't definitively say, I believe, until the exit interview. His maybe exit interview or his after his final game, he'll talk about it then and probably make a decision, and we'll see on that. Tara T, best man. Great, bro. Might be a typo. I think you're complimenting me, in which case, thank you, sir, and salute. Dirk, because I think DFW history for me personally. Do I think that 20? Okay, I talked a little bit about this earlier, about the 2006 finals. I don't think it was fixed. I think Dallas had to help crater. But I do think that the referees were instructed to look at certain calls that Wade going to the rim saying, like, probably there was a foul there, and I think they were instructed to look more closely for those kind of fouls, and that favored Dwayne Wade's run at the rim and flop and fling his arms and scream better than it complemented the Mavericks play style. And I think that in big part contributed. So you can say rigged to me as like, it doesn't matter what you do, we're going to deny you this. And I don't think that happened. I think Dallas had 2 games they could have won, and they had to either choke or they had to simply not execute. So I think that it was leaned against them, stacked against them, not to a nefarious degree necessarily, but I think that they let it happen, unfortunately. Thankfully, 2011 came back and they got to, right the narrative. Right as in correct the narrative. So that was cool. But I might do a video on this at some point where I talk specifically about this, and it won't be a stream. It'll be some edited video I put together. Best man, I like you. Oh, gotcha. Sweet, man. Appreciate that, Charity. Oh, God, 3 a.m. All right. I'm so generous to you guys. I know. I'll take 3 more questions. Tara T, thank you for watching. Salute. Appreciate it. I'm going to take 3 more questions. Starting with Cam's, which is already on screen. Should Mark build a new Mavs stadium just for the F of it? A new one? No. The AAC hasn't been around long enough. It's been around 17, 18 years. This is something like around 2000. No. The way they've built up Victory Park and that whole thing there with like this pretty much shopping center. No, it's not time. And I don't know where they would go. They're already in heart of Dallas pretty much. I'd say stay where they're at. Maybe look to build onto it or something if he really wanted. But to me, nah. The trends of everyone needing new stadiums, I think, is overplayed anyway. Okay, so there's that question there. Who else got an Oscar for a 5? Who else gets an Oscar for a 5-minute cartoon? Oh man, I'm not even gonna go there on that one. All right, well, I am nearly 2 hours into this thing, man. Holy crap! You guys are great. Make the time fly by. Like I said, I started this stream going on like 2 hours of sleep and feeling just dead as can be, and you guys kept me revitalized. The AAC is by the grassy knoll. Very historic. All right. Yeah, we'll sidestep that one for now. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it on my time, guys. Unless two people can kick in super quick questions in the next like 10 seconds, I am going to wind down and call it a show on that. Oh, look at that. Is that a question? That is a question. I see a question mark. Rangers King, the biggest what if for me is if Dirk gets drafted 8th at the Sixers instead for Larry Hughes. Woo! Yeah, I think you got something there on especially that latter part. Paul Pierce probably would have been the Mavericks' move had Dirk gone off the board. They swung the deal with Milwaukee on draft day for Robert Tractor Taylor. Rest in peace. I forgot about that. Sorry. But yeah, Mavericks got a hell of a deal out of that. That's a good what if, and that would take some certainly research for me to put that together. I'm not as prepped to make that video happen as I am some of these other ones we've talked about. Whose ring holds the most weight, Dirk or LeBron's? LeBron's got 3, Dirk's got 1. Give me Dirk's 1 ring over both of LeBron's Miami rings, but not over the Cleveland ring. I know he left and came back, but giving Cleveland a championship ring, that's about on par. And when you add with the lesser weight of his 2 in Miami, I think you go LeBron there. KD, man, I gotta be careful and not bite off some of this. I'll say it. His bitch ass. I don't care about KD. I don't care if KD's got 2 rings and 2 Finals MVPs. Give me Dirk's 1 over everything for KD in Golden State. KD could win 2 more, 3 more in Golden State, and I'm still going to take Dirk's 1 because Dirk didn't leave and he didn't go join a 73-win team he couldn't beat, that he choked against with a 3-1 lead, and then had the audacity to say that he was trying to help them get over the hump. Man, miss me with that. One team that had... Okay, last question. Last question here goes to... I am trying to say this. Calterac-Allo? Sorry if I butchered your name. Name one team that had a harder playoff run than the 2011 Mavericks. In the modern era, no one, to me, in the modern era had a harder playoff run than the Mavericks in 2011. Had the Thunder completed the ousting of the 73-win Warriors and then beaten LeBron in the finals, which I think they would have, that would have been it, because then they would have beaten a ho-hum Dallas team, a 67-win San Antonio Spurs team, a 73-win Golden State Warriors team, and LeBron in the finals. So for me, that one would have been the greatest postseason run of the modern era. But instead, we got, instead it's the Mavericks, 2011. It's so underappreciated and unrespected, unfortunately, in part because Cuban blew up that team, but also in part because, we had the lockout and then the landscape drastically shifted. And I hate that people act like we were a fluke. It was not a fluke. We were the hottest team with the best player in the world for that stretch. So, miss me with that, those people. All right, so I think that's going to wrap up my time here, guys. I've been going for 2 hours, and I am exhausted. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this. We are going to do a lot more of these. If you want to support us, you can support us on patreon.com. If you are extra supporting and generous, you can hit us up at the $10 level. We will send you one of our new Dallas Prospect t-shirts, which has like this new logo. Wait, get my finger on screen. This new Dallas Prospect logo over Cha. On that, you'll get that shirt, I should say, as a thank you reward, I guess, for supporting us. You can also just buy the shirt straight up if you want to do just like a one-time thing. It's like $15 bucks. You can pay that on. We got a PayPal as well if you want to do that. Other than that, man, just subscribe. Tell people about us. We want to grow this community. We're gonna do live streams during the season. We're gonna do them weekly. I'm gonna do some watch parties. I'm gonna come out and hang out with you guys. Something like Mexico Restaurant and Club, and we're gonna hang out. We're gonna have some drinks, and we're gonna watch and talk. We're gonna watch the Mavericks, and we're gonna talk some basketball. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, just remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.